Newly married and his ex reached out within 24 hours. Hey everyone. I honestly never thought I would be writing something like this so soon after my wedding. I am still trying to settle my emotions because one minute I feel calm and grounded and the next I feel unsettled for reasons I cannot fully explain. I am hoping that writing this out will help me process what happened and maybe get a clearer perspective. I am a 39-year-old woman and I have been with my husband Daniel for just over 4 years. He is 45. We met later in life compared to some people, but when we met, everything felt steady and intentional. We were not dramatic. We were not chaotic. It felt like two people choosing each other every day without noise. We got engaged in February of last year and decided pretty quickly that we did not want to wait for years to get married. We planned our wedding for December and jumped straight into planning. It was not stressful. There were no major arguments. Everything came together naturally. Our wedding day was beautiful. The sun was out. The weather was perfect. The people we love were there. It was one of those rare days where nothing feels rushed and nothing feels wrong. I remember standing there thinking that this was exactly how it was supposed to feel. Both Daniel and I are very low-key when it comes to social media. We have accounts, but we barely use them. For us, it is just a way to stay lightly connected with people we care about. I do not post often. I do not comment much. I did not do countdowns or wedding teasers or newlywed posts. My profile showed that I was in a relationship with Daniel, but I never updated it to say engaged. After the wedding, I still had not changed anything. Life was happening in real time, not online. Daniel was married before. His ex-wife, who I will call Lauren, is 43. They were together for around 12 years in total. 9 years dating, 1 year engaged, and 2 years married. From everything Daniel told me, and from what his close friends and family have shared over time, their relationship was unstable for most of its duration. They broke up several times before getting married. People close to him questioned whether marriage was the right step. Daniel is someone who believes deeply in commitment. When things were not working, he thought that taking the next step would somehow fix the cracks. Instead, it made them more visible. During their marriage, Daniel carried most of the financial weight. He handled the bills, groceries, trips, and even the car. Lauren worked part-time and treated her income as personal spending money. When people asked her about future plans, she openly said she did not really need to worry because Daniel took care of everything. I want to be fair here. That kind of arrangement works for some couples. It clearly did not work for them. After 2 unhappy years of marriage, Daniel asked for a divorce. What should have been a clean separation turned into a long and emotionally draining process. Lauren refused to move out until legal steps forced the issue. When that day finally came, it was not peaceful. By the time Daniel and I met, the divorce was finalized, but the emotional fallout had clearly left marks. Even so, he never spoke about her with bitterness. He explained what happened when it was relevant, but he did not rant or insult her. Now to the part that brought me here. Less than 24 hours after Daniel and I got married, while I was still riding the quiet joy of finally being his wife, I received a private message request on social media. It was from Lauren. I stared at the notification for a long moment before opening it. My heart sank before I even read a word. Something about the timing felt intentional. In her message, she said she believed I had just married her ex-husband. She claimed that Daniel had been trying to contact her on and off for years. She said the most recent attempt was just 3 days before our wedding. She went on to say that I had probably heard terrible things about her. That Daniel demonizes his exes and never takes responsibility for his actions. That she loved him deeply and was still recovering from the damage he caused her. She said she did not want contact with him but felt obligated to warn me. She told me she had been exactly where I was. She said he would never give me the life he promised. She described him as perfect when things are good and unbearable when things are bad. Reading it felt like someone had reached into a moment of happiness and twisted it on purpose. I did not feel panic exactly. I felt something colder. A crack in something that had felt whole. I trust my husband. I genuinely do. Nothing in our relationship has ever suggested dishonesty. I have never seen behavior that aligns with what she described. I also happen to know one of Daniel's other ex-partners. I will call her Hannah. Their relationship ended amicably years ago. They remained on friendly terms after reconnecting post-divorce. She is now happily married with children and has been nothing but supportive and honest with me. Hannah told me clearly that I had nothing to worry about. She said the message felt like an attempt to stir emotions rather than reveal truth. Still, the timing hurt. The intention felt cruel. Whether or not the claims were real, the act of sending that message so soon after our wedding felt calculated. I did not respond. Part of me wanted to protect my peace. Another part of me felt unsettled simply knowing the message existed. I showed it to Daniel. He was in the room when I saw it. We read it together. He told me calmly that he had not tried to contact her and offered his phone without hesitation. I did not feel the need to look. In the days leading up to our wedding, we were together constantly. He is also very bad at lying. Anyone close to him knows this. I did not accept the message request. As far as I know, that means she cannot see whether I read it or send another message. I hoped that would be the end of it. I did what most emotionally stable newly married people would probably do. I ignored the message and continued living my life. I focused on being married. On waking up next to my husband. On building routines that felt grounding and real. December passed quietly. Christmas came and went. We spent it with family, cooked too much food, laughed about how strange it felt to finally be husband and wife. The world felt normal again. New Year followed. I went back to work. Life settled. The message from Lauren stayed untouched, like something you know exists but choose not to look at too closely. I filed her away mentally under not my problem. Because I never accepted the original message request, she could not send another one. Or at least that was my understanding. The silence felt intentional and peaceful. Nature felt like it was healing. Daniel also took steps of his own. Without me asking, he did a full digital cleanup. Mutual connections were removed. Old ties were cut. He wanted to make sure there was no open door, no accidental access point. I assumed that was the end of it. I was wrong. As we approached 1 month of being married, Daniel and I decided to finally update our social media. Nothing dramatic. Just a quiet change of status. A few wedding photos. Something simple. Within an hour of updating, she was back. This time it was on a completely different platform. I saw the notification and felt my stomach drop. Same name. Same profile photo. Different app. I did not open the message. I knew that if I did, she would be able to see it. I refused to give her that satisfaction. The message just sat there unread, like a sealed envelope you know contains something unpleasant. I started running through options in my head. Do I respond and tell her to leave me alone? Do I block her immediately? Do I ask for the evidence she keeps implying exists? Or is that exactly what she wants? These appearances felt deliberate. Carefully timed. Designed to make me uncomfortable without crossing a clear line. I showed the new message to Daniel. He looked embarrassed and upset. He apologized again even though none of this was his doing. He told me he would handle it. What bothered me the most was not fear or jealousy. It was confusion. If this was genuinely about warning me, why keep following me across platforms? Why not say your piece once and disappear? It felt less like concern and more like intrusion. At that point, friends I confided in all said the same thing. If someone truly wanted to warn you, they would do it once. Not linger. Not hover. I blocked the account without opening the message. I took screenshots first, just in case. Then I closed the app and went back to my life. The act of blocking felt anticlimactic. There was no confrontation. No final word. Just silence. In the weeks that followed, nothing else happened. No new messages. No indirect contact. No strange activity. Slowly, the tension in my body eased. I realized something important during that time. Even if everything she said had been true, reaching out the way she did was still wrong. There are ways to handle truth with care. This was not one of them. Marriage has a way of clarifying priorities. My responsibility was to my husband and to the life we were building together, not to ghosts from his past demanding attention. Looking back now, I believe the message was meant to disrupt, not protect. And the best response to disruption is refusing to participate. I am sharing this because I know I am not the only person this has happened to. Sometimes the loudest warnings are not the most honest ones. Sometimes silence really is the clearest boundary. This next story did not happen to me, but it stuck with me because of how quietly damaging it was. It was shared by someone close to me, and the more I thought about it, the more uncomfortable it made me feel. She was 25 at the time and attended the wedding of a very close friend. There were no official bridesmaids, but she was essentially the only person helping the bride with everything. Getting ready. Running errands. Being emotional support. She wore a dress that she chose carefully. It was elegant, simple, and appropriate for a wedding. The only exposed skin was her arms and part of her upper back, which had a subtle cutout that was mostly covered by her hair. The groom came from a more conservative background and had strong opinions about modesty. During the reception, the bride leaned over and told my friend that her husband had commented that it looked like she left half of her dress at home. The bride did not laugh. She did not frame it as a joke. She did not defend her friend. She just repeated it, flat and serious, as if it were normal feedback. My friend felt herself shrink in that moment. Not because she believed the comment, but because she could not understand why it was being shared with her at all. Other guests were wearing sleeveless dresses, fitted dresses, and outfits that showed just as much skin. The wedding itself was relaxed. People were drinking, dancing, laughing. What made it worse was that this was not the first time the bride had passed along comments like this. In the past, she had told my friend that her husband believed she only got a good opportunity because someone found her attractive. None of these comments were ever said directly to her. They were always filtered through the bride. That is what made it unsettling. Either the groom was saying inappropriate things about her and the bride felt comfortable repeating them, or the bride was using her husband as a shield to voice her own insecurities. Both options were bad. The dress itself was not revealing. Anyone looking at it objectively could see that. The problem was not the dress. The problem was the dynamic. When someone takes time out of what is supposed to be one of the happiest days of their life to make another person feel small, that says more about them than it does about the outfit. My friend left that wedding feeling confused, embarrassed, and strangely guilty, even though she had done nothing wrong. Sometimes people show you who they are in subtle ways. Not through shouting or conflict, but through quiet comments that linger longer than they should. Another story that stayed with me involved a wedding that should have been simple but turned stressful in an instant. A woman wrote about her sister's wedding and the makeup artist they had booked months in advance. A deposit had been paid. Everything was confirmed. There was trust because they had worked together before. On the wedding day, the makeup artist arrived wearing a mask and immediately said she was exhausted. She began working on the bride but stopped halfway through, saying she could not continue. At first, everyone was understanding. They thought she was sick. They offered help. They even suggested taking her to get medical care. Instead, the bride had to finish her own makeup on her wedding day. She was capable, but that was not the point. She had wanted to relax and be taken care of. Later that day, a friend sent a screenshot from a social media group. The makeup artist had posted about getting cosmetic injections right before the wedding and exaggerating the pain so she could leave early. She joked about it. She laughed in the comments. She even said she paid for it with easy money. The realization hit hard. What looked like exhaustion had been manipulation. The sister confronted her. She admitted she yelled. She felt foolish for believing the story and for paying the full amount out of sympathy. People began reaching out, saying she was overreacting and could not take legal action. But the proof was there, publicly posted. Kindness had been taken advantage of. The hardest part was not the money. It was realizing that empathy had been used as leverage. When someone presents themselves as struggling to gain your compassion, and then mocks that compassion later, it leaves a particular kind of sting. Standing up for yourself after that does not make you cruel. It makes you aware. This next situation sounds almost unreal until you realize how often people try to control others under the excuse of weddings. A 26-year-old woman shared that she had stopped shaving her armpits years ago. Not as a statement. Not to provoke anyone. Simply because she was more comfortable that way. She had sensitive skin. Shaving caused rashes and irritation. She also noticed that having hair actually helped with sweating and deodorant effectiveness. Her choice was personal. Quiet. Not something she talked about or announced. Her friends invited her to their destination wedding, which was planned for summer in a warm coastal location. Many events would involve swimsuits and sleeveless outfits. She asked about dress codes ahead of time. Both the bride and groom said they were not strict as long as everyone looked presentable. Later, they brought up that some guests felt uncomfortable with her not shaving. That was the moment everything shifted. She reminded them that they had known about her choice for years. It was not new. It was not hidden. They said they assumed she would shave for special occasions to look appropriate. She explained that grooming does not equal shaving and that body hair does not make someone unclean or disrespectful. The conversation escalated. They accused her of trying to make a political statement and steal attention from their wedding. She tried to compromise. She offered to trim. They said even that would be distracting. Distracting became the word that hurt the most. Imagine being told your body is so disruptive that it could take attention away from an entire wedding. She was not even part of the wedding party. Just a guest. The deeper issue became clear. This was not about comfort or etiquette. It was about control. When someone insists your personal body choices are inappropriate for their celebration, it stops being about aesthetics and starts being about boundaries. She decided she would still attend and would not shave. Not out of spite. But because nothing about her body was wrong. Weddings reveal a lot about people. Sometimes more than they intend. Another story that sparked intense debate involved grief, love, and boundaries colliding on a wedding day. A 30-year-old man was engaged to a woman he deeply loved. She had been married once before to a man who passed away suddenly in an accident years earlier. Their love had been real. Their loss had been devastating. When he met her, she was open about her past. He respected it. He supported her through anniversaries and moments of grief. She kept a box of memories. She visited the grave on important dates. None of that bothered him. What unsettled him came later. She told him she planned to wear her late husband's wedding ring on a chain around her neck during their wedding ceremony. She described it as a quiet tribute. Something personal. Not something she planned to announce. He tried to understand. He truly did. But the more he thought about it, the more it hurt. He told her that the wedding day was supposed to be about the life they were building together. That wearing another wedding ring made him feel like he was sharing the moment with someone else. He admitted it made him feel second. She said grief does not disappear. It becomes part of who you are. Both of them were right in their own way. The problem was that there was no easy compromise. If she wore the ring, he would be hurt. If she did not, she would feel like she was erasing part of herself. Love does not always fail because of a lack of care. Sometimes it struggles because two valid feelings collide. The question was never about jealousy. It was about whether a wedding could carry symbols of both past and future without one overshadowing the other. This story came from a woman who worked as a live performer alongside her husband. At the time, both of them relied on gigs to pay the bills, and saying no was not always an option. They were contacted about performing at a wedding through an agent. From the start, the agent emphasized that the budget was extremely low and the hours would be long. Normally, live music performances lasted 3 to 4 hours. This one was expected to run closer to 6. The pay was far below standard. They hesitated, but ultimately agreed because they had no other bookings that day. They set one clear condition. Their musicians needed to be treated like guests. That meant being fed and allowed a drink if they wanted one. The agent agreed. Because the rate was so discounted, they considered that their wedding gift to the couple. Wanting to go above and beyond, the performer offered to sing live during sets and handle music during breaks so guests would never experience silence. When they arrived at the venue, it was immediately clear that this was not a low-budget event. The space was upscale. The decor was extravagant. Every table displayed arrangements that cost more than what each musician was being paid. Still, they did their job. The first set went smoothly. Guests were dancing. The atmosphere was great. During the first break, musicians went to get food as agreed. They were refused. When the performer went to the bar herself, she was told they do not serve vendors. She calmly explained that they were artists and that food was part of the agreement. The bartender mocked her. Repeated her words in a childish tone. Laughed. After 20 minutes of trying to resolve the situation professionally, nothing changed. She walked back to the stage and stopped the music. The room fell silent. Suddenly, everyone paid attention. The agent was finally reached. He said he did not care what had been agreed to and would not help. The mother of the bride asked what was happening. The performer explained calmly and respectfully. She was asked to keep playing and deal with it later. She refused. She said the agreement needed to be honored first. Within moments, food and drinks appeared for the musicians. The rest of the night went perfectly. Guests danced. The celebration continued. That silence did not ruin the wedding. It enforced respect. The lesson was simple. If someone breaks an agreement, you are not obligated to keep giving. The final story involved a family conflict that escalated far beyond what anyone expected. A woman shared that her younger sister was getting married and decided to impose what she called a wedding tax on family members. The wedding was small, but expensive. The couple listed costs for the venue, decor, and catering and expected family to contribute financially. This was in addition to gifts. The woman felt uncomfortable. She expressed that weddings should be about celebration, not financial pressure. Her sister dismissed her concerns. The argument escalated. Voices were raised. Feelings were hurt. Communication stopped for weeks. An invitation arrived with a note implying that attendance was conditional on payment. The woman chose not to attend. On the wedding day, chaos unfolded. Guests who paid argued over seating. Vendors canceled last minute. People felt cheated when the experience did not match the cost. A fight broke out after dinner. Someone was escorted out. The new mother-in-law demanded a refund. The bride was left crying. The groom apologized to guests. Later, the sister sent a message that included a half apology and a demand for money anyway. Eventually, the marriage nearly ended before it had even begun. The woman realized that stepping away had been the only decision that protected her peace. Sometimes refusing to participate is not abandonment. It is self-respect. After hearing all of these stories back to back, one thing became impossible to ignore. Weddings have a strange way of amplifying who people really are. They are supposed to be about love, commitment, and shared joy. But under pressure, they often turn into something else entirely. They become tests of loyalty. Tests of obedience. Tests of how much discomfort people are willing to tolerate in the name of tradition. In every story, the conflict was not really about the surface issue. It was not about an ex-wife sending a message. It was not about a dress. It was not about makeup or body hair or music or money. It was about boundaries. The newly married woman was not shaken because of jealousy. She was shaken because someone tried to insert themselves into a moment that did not belong to them. The guest at the wedding was not hurt because of a comment about her dress. She was hurt because the person she trusted chose to pass along judgment instead of protection. The bride whose makeup artist left was not upset just because of unfinished makeup. She was upset because her vulnerability was exploited. The woman who refused to shave was not making a statement. She was being told her body was unacceptable. The man uncomfortable with his fiancée wearing a ring was not competing with the dead. He was asking for space to build something new. The musicians were not demanding luxury. They were asking for basic respect. The sister who refused the wedding tax was not abandoning family. She was refusing to be treated like a transaction. Weddings magnify entitlement when it exists. They magnify insecurity. They magnify unresolved grief. They magnify control. And they magnify kindness too, when it is present. What connects all these stories is the moment someone realized they were being asked to shrink for someone else's comfort. That is the moment everything shifts. Love does not require silence in the face of disrespect. Celebration does not require self-betrayal. Commitment does not mean endurance without limits. The healthiest relationships are not the ones without conflict. They are the ones where boundaries are honored even when emotions run high. Walking away is not always the dramatic choice. Sometimes it is the quiet one. Silence can be protection. Distance can be clarity. And refusing to engage can be the strongest response of all. Looking back now, the common thread is not chaos. It is choice. Every person in these stories reached a point where they had to decide whether to engage or step back. Some confronted. Some blocked. Some walked away. Some stayed but set firmer limits. None of those choices were wrong. What mattered was that each person stopped prioritizing someone else's comfort over their own well-being. Weddings end. Photos fade. Drama quiets down. What lasts is how people made you feel when you were most vulnerable. The ex-wife wanted relevance. She did not get it. The bride who passed along judgment lost trust. The makeup artist lost credibility. The friends who tried to control a body lost a guest's respect. The agent who broke an agreement lost future work. The couple who turned love into a financial obligation lost peace on their wedding day. Boundaries have consequences. Not as punishment, but as natural outcomes. When you cross them, access changes. When you honor them, trust grows. Choosing peace does not mean avoiding conflict forever. It means knowing which conflicts are worth your energy. Some doors do not need to be slammed. They just need to be closed. Quietly. Without explanation. And without guilt.